Okay, I've turned the recording on, so I want to say thank you for coming and welcome to Basics of Lesson Planning. Before I introduce myself, there's a couple things. I'm using my partner's Zoom account, which is our kind of consulting company account. And it's just after 5 in the morning where he is. He's in the US. And I sent him an email saying, don't log into your account, because if he does, I'll get cut off. And maybe this meeting will get canceled. I'm not sure. If that happens, I will email everyone through the Eventbrite, because I think you didn't all sign in through Eventbrite. Well, Janina, I'll email you and you can pass out that new one. And Noguchi, I know how to get in contact with you. So if that happens in the next hour and a half, just so you know, we'll reconvene maybe in a different meeting room. The Nearpod won't go away. It's just getting the video back together. So with that said, if you ever have questions at any time, you're welcome to open up your mic and ask. You're also welcome to type into the chat. So I'm going to introduce myself, although you all know me. I am just waiting for the slide to turn. Oh yes, also, before I talk a little more, I just want to say that for the recording, I also have logged in as a participant so that when people watch the recording, they see the participant screen. Once or twice today, I'll be showing you how to use some of the interactive tools in Nearpod, and you can watch me do it, but you need to use the tab that you signed in on your computer. So you might want to have the tabs as like two separate windows side by side. Just so you know, on my laptop, I have two separate tabs and they're really small, but I can see how things are. But if you want to see how to do things and then try it yourself, watch my participant screen first, then you can do it on your screen. So my name is Larry Davies. SFHEA means I'm a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. This is a credential for people in higher education that have organized teacher training or teacher development programs in higher education. And HEA is an organization out of the UK. It's becoming more and more internationally recognized. I know that most of you are not university or college level teachers, but I do pop it in there just so people know that that's the credential. Also, my private company is called Teak Learning LLC. It's a consulting company, and I am the Chief Learning Officer, the CLO, meaning I'm the guy who puts together all of the content, and I do have a business partner who takes care of all the business stuff. So actually, I know all of you, so there's no nice to meet you or anything. All right, so here's our first activity for the day. Even though I do know where you all are, I still want you to play with this tool. And I'm going to ask you, where are you in the world? Thank you for the internet. I know where you are, but we're going to use this tool, okay? So in this tool coming up, if you look on my screen, what I'm going to do, I have these things at the bottom. I have a pencil tool, I have a highlight tool, I have a text tool, I have an image tool. I'm not going to use the image tool. I'm actually just going to use the pencil tool, and I'm going to choose black, and I'm going to make it kind of thickish. And I'm going to click the pencil tool again, make that go away. So I'm here in Abu Dhabi, so I'm just going to draw a tiny dot to show where I am. So if you can do the same, that would be very helpful. Okay, so I see that Kirsten is starting to play with things. And Nadia, Noguchi, and now Janina is there. And when you're done, by the way, there's this big blue submit button in the lower right corner, which I'm going to click. And when I click it, I get this got it. Okay, Noguchi's in there. Nadia, I don't see you there yet. I'm not sure if you're connected or not. Now, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, we're actually going to use this tool a few times today, which is why I'm starting out with getting you familiar with the tool. Oh, okay, everybody submitted. All right, so let's see here. Let's just go through these and see who's from where. That looks like Northern Italy. A big red dot in Northern Italy, and that one is out in the ocean beneath Japan. Probably Okinawa. I know someone named Noguchi in Okinawa who looks a lot like you and who sounds a lot like you. This next person has a big green dot in Italy, Northern Italy, and this next person has a black dot somewhere in Northern Italy. And let's guess who this one is. There's someone right there, right around Abu Dhabi. Okay, great. All right, so we're in 3 different countries today. I had people sign up from about 6 or 7 different countries. It would have been nice, but all right. Let's move on. You have about a minute and a half here, and for every session I do, I'm giving certificates of attendance. I might already have your email. If not, you can type your email in here and click submit. So I'm just gonna type, you can do it either way. Again, I know most of you, this is for people who are new, but I'm just gonna type in my address anyway, teachlearning.org. By the way, you can click on the small picture of the certificate. It'll pop up so you can see it. You have 1 more minute. I'm going to click submit. Again, this is completely optional. If you don't want to enter anything, you don't have to enter anything. And again, I was expecting about 15 people, and I was expecting several new people. This is mainly for them, but I pretty much have everybody's certificate. I mean, everybody's email. I'm just going to wait out the 20 seconds before we move on.
Larry, if you see that everybody has submitted, is there a way to run out the clock, or do you always have to wait it out? Because that's what it seems like to me.
I don't think it has to be waited out. No.
Okay. Thanks.
I think, yeah, I think it's there. So I'm just going to share one person's email. Maybe you can guess whose email this is. This tool is called the open-ended question tool, and we're also going to use it later today. So now you've had a little practice with that too. How nice, right? Some quick practice. Okay, now this is the last thing. I want you to assess yourself as a teacher, and we have 4 levels. I'm a novice. I'm just starting to learn this. I don't really understand it yet. I'm an apprentice. I'm starting to get it, but I still need someone to coach me through it. I'm a practitioner. I can mostly do it myself, but I sometimes make mistakes or get stuck on a task. I thought I could do it all at once. Or I'm an expert. I understand it well, and I could thoroughly teach it to someone else. And again, I'm going to do this as a poll. The same choices are there. So just click the one that's correct for you, whether you're a novice, apprentice, practitioner, or expert. And if you want to click on the little picture again to see it, you can.
Larry, is this as a teacher in general or as a teacher online and of these things?
Teacher in general is fine. I probably should have made it as a teacher online. Thank you very much. It's not this.
Okay.
Today's session is not as much geared to teaching online, although all the interactive tools I'm using obviously are here for you to experience to be an online teacher.
So we should answer just as a teacher in general, or as a teacher of all these?
As a teacher in general is fine.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And I'm going to submit.
Thanks.
You have just 10 seconds left. Get those submissions in. Noguchi, you changed your vote. I saw your original vote. All right, Janine, I don't see your vote out here. Oh, there it is. Okay, So most of us are in the high range. We are practitioners or experts. One person is being very modest and saying that she's an apprentice teacher. Maybe an apprentice teacher online? No, probably not. Anyway, okay. All right, so let's start with one of my favorite poets, William Butler Yeats. He says, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. What do you think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why do you agree? Why do you disagree? You're welcome to open up your mic, or you can type in the chat. But I would like to hear a response or two, whether you agree or disagree with Mr. Yates.
Well, maybe I can say something, but okay, definitely, I don't think education has to do with sort of passing on knowledge, content, something. I mean, that in a way students have to more or less repeat. It's more sort of trying to give a sort of to create an environment in which everybody can sort of make his own progress in a way and find his qualities and maybe working on his limits, basically. And so everyone has sort of to make a sort of progress, but with his own pace. And this is what is difficult in a way, because we are all different. And so even
Right.
when you try to create opportunities, you have to think about the fact that every student is different, and what might be stimulating or motivating for one student may not be for another. And I think that's the problem, finding something for everyone.
Okay, and I think an important thing you said in there is we are the creators of environments for learning. And not everybody's going to learn the same thing at the same time. Because some things we create might not be interesting to some, or it's very interesting to others. And that's part of our job, is to deal with that difference when it comes up. Is that a good summary? Okay, does someone else want to add something here?
Yeah, I agree with this quote. I think that a lot of what my job is to get students excited and feel confident about their own ability to address questions that they have, and to organize their own learning, make them excited. I think very related to what Nadia said earlier.
Okay. I'm hoping that today I'll be lighting some fires in you, so you can light some fires in your students. And I have some good metaphors for that today too. All right. So what we're going to do today, I'm just waiting for my slide to change. It changes really slowly. Okay. So I have three main outcomes for today, which is, the first one is to define 6 stages of a lesson plan. And I'm going to give things away. We're going to go through all 6 stages today. We've already gone through the first stage. This is the second stage. I'm going to ask you to think about how you're going to implement a participatory learning activity in an online setting. So you're right, Janina, I should have probably added online teacher there to that one. I'll do that later. And hopefully we can give some examples that can be used in the 5 other parts of lesson plans too. So again, this is basics of lesson planning. You're mostly experienced teachers, so I hope I don't bore you too much, or I hope you've never heard of this model that we're going to look mainly at today. This is the BOPPPS model. Are you familiar with this? If yes, then there goes my whole session. Are you familiar with BOPPPS? And these little graphics should give you some hints. Anyone?
Well, I'm imagining that the B, some kind of introduction, but I can't figure out what the B might mean. But
hang on, okay, hang on. So let's go here. All right, BOPPPS. If you're not sure, I'm going to help you to guess. And we're going to use that tool we used where you just located where you were on the map. So again, down below here, if you look at me on the participant screen, you might want to choose this text tool. That will pop a text box on top of this graphic. And I'm going to choose the color black. And again, I'm going to make the text size a little bit big and then click the T again. Then I'm just going to drag this here. And if you know what any of these letters stand for, you can pop them right in here. So you might say B equals beginning. By the way, that's not what it is, but I'm just saying. And there's the O, which could equal orientation. Anyway, take a guess and let's see how you do. So I'm going to watch. I see Kirsten is guessing. Good guesses so far. Your guesses are great because it tells me that you have some new things to learn today. Noguchi has not started yet. P is a practice. I see background, begin. Oh, great, okay. Noguchi, are you gonna make some guesses? You don't have to, no, not forcing anybody. And again, when you're finished with your guess, just hit the submit button, which I just did. You're welcome to take a nice guess. Okay, Janine, you're getting close with a couple of those. All right, Kirsten, you have one part right. Oh, very good. You got that one. Okay. Okay, here comes Noguchi now. Nadia, oh, my eyes are so bad. We're almost there. All right, okay. Nadia made some good guesses. Kirsten did your best. You missed the B, Kirsten. Anyway, that's all right. Okay. And hey, Larry, you did a terrible job. Your guesses are wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna wait for
no, I did do the B and then it disappeared. Oofa.
okay, that's all right. No worries.
Oh, I'm gonna be like a naughty child now.
There's no marking here. There's no marking. Guessing is encouraged. Okay, Noguchi, are you okay? Are you struggling with the interface? All right, I'm guessing that she's not good. Okay, so I'm just going to share a couple of things that you answered. And again, this is anonymous sharing. I know who answered what, but you don't, which is okay. Share. Oh, looks like I'm having some technical problems. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this person got one thing correct and another one kind of correct. I'll tell you in just a second. And this person made a very good effort and got the pre and the post and the participate kind of right. And we know what I did. And this person also Looks like this one didn't really get any of them right. Okay, so this is good. This is good because my pre-assessment tells me that today's lesson is going to be all fresh and new for everybody. So I already did our bridge-in activity, which is to ask, or maybe you can tell me. Anyway, these are the 6 parts of BOPPPS: the bridge-in, the outcomes, pre-assessment, participatory learning, post-assessment, and summary. It's a very good structure for doing your lessons. You'll also notice I have little icons associated with all 6, a little arrow pointing to the right for the bridge, a little graduation cap, a little question mark for the pre-assessment, fire for participatory learning, check mark for post-assessment, and a double arrow for summary. I wanted to keep those icons simple. And then I'm also going to point up to the top left corner of our slides, because we're already in the participatory learning stage. What do you think was the bridge-in that we had? Meaning, how did I gain your attention and create value? Which hopefully I've already done today.
We did the poll on the teacher and the quote.
Okay. And where are you from? So we kind of did 3 bridge-in, quick little interactive activities to get things going, to get your brain working, to gain your attention. I'm not jumping directly into the content, but getting people ready and giving you a little secret training on how to use the tools, so you get experience with the tools too. Like I said, when you made the little dot on the map showing me where you're from, you got to play with the draw tool, and now we just played with the draw tool again, except this time you typed in some text. So I'm trying to show you the versatility of that tool too. And we got a little bit of conversation going in the bridge. And did we do outcomes? Do you remember if we did outcomes?
I think we did when you said what you wanted to achieve, what you wanted to deal. I mean, at the end of this session, we will be doing this. No?
That is correct. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that, but I did that right after the bridge. And did we do a pre-assessment today?
Yes.
What was the pre-assessment?
Trying to understand what those letters stood for, and so now we know. I know that I don't know anything.
Okay, and you know that you don't know anything, and I know that you don't know anything. So my pre-assessment helped to find out what your current knowledge, skills, and competence are. In this case, it's just knowledge more than anything. So already we finished 3 out of the 6 parts of a BOPPPS lesson right here online, okay? Of course, I'm going to go into details of all 6 parts of these now. And again, if you look in the top left corner, you should know where we are. And I'm just going to cheat and go back to the beginning for just a second. Whoops, I went too far. Okay. It takes a little time. So again, if you look at the top left corner, you can see that little arrow pointing to the right. That means this is a bridge slide, obviously. And here's another bridge slide introducing myself. And then here's a bridge activity. And here's a second bridge activity, which is if you want a certificate. And then the self-assessment is yet another bridge activity. So we did several of those already. And then we did a quote, which is another bridge activity. So I had lots of them. Then we got to the outcomes. There's the little graduation cap showing that we hit our outcomes. And that's usually just one slide. The outcomes don't necessarily need to be there. And then you see the green question mark as we started the pre-assessment. And then I gave you a chance here to take a guess what these stood for. And now, we're right here in this phase where we're starting the main participatory activities. This is the most important part. I haven't, this chart doesn't show it enough. I was playing with the graphics and okay, I was happy, but the participatory learning tends to be the longest part of the lesson. The bridge, outcomes, pre and post assessment and summary are usually of equal short length, but I was playing with the graphics and I decided to keep the bridge and the summary a little bit longer. They can vary in length, but you want to think about participatory learning as being the most important. Excuse me. Okay, so I want to brainstorm a few things today. If we think about the bridge as being the place where you gain your learners' attention, you get them ready to get started for learning, and then somehow you create value for your lessons. There are probably a lot of different things that you can do. And I want us, what I'm going to do for each of the 6 parts of a BOPPS lesson, since most of you are experienced teachers, you probably will be able to answer some of these brainstorm questions. So I do appreciate that you can do that in advance, and I hope that we'll be able to do this together. So the 2 main questions, of course, when you're creating a lesson plan, when you're in the bridging stage, I'm still waiting for the slide to change, okay. The first one is, in what ways can you gain attention? And I'd like you to think about that because I'm going to ask you to answer that question in just a second. And in what ways then can you create value for your learners going into your lesson? Okay, so we're going to take a very short time to answer these 2 questions in our next area. This is, just a minute, apply for the rest of the session. All right. So we're going to use this tool called the Collaborate board. And again, at the bottom of your screen here, there's a box right here that says share thoughts and images here. And I'm just going to type an example of a bridge in, which is asking people where they are from. And if we think of this for online, this is fine. So I typed asking people where they're from. You can see that there's a number 216. You're limited to 250 characters typing in here. And then I'm going to click post. And my response is going to pop up there in the form of a little sticky note. There's also this image thing here. You can upload an image if you want. And actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to upload, if I can find it, the 2 feeder questions for you, which is how do you create value and how do you gain students' attention? So go ahead and think through those things, and we will try to get through this. You can take your time. We're not going to limit this, but I am going to wait for everybody. I'm just trying to find my slide while I'm talking here. Creating value. Okay, here it is. So this is the slide, and I'm going to click save. Then I'm going to click post. And again, you're welcome to click that graphic so you can see it a little more easily as you type your answers. You can always add more than 1 answer. You don't just have to put 1, you can put more. Okay, and the next thing you can do, of course, is please read what other people wrote. And if you like what they wrote, you can see in the lower right corner, there's a big heart and the number 0. If you click the heart next to the one that you like, you're going to then see the number 1, which I'm going to do right now. Giving them a picture and asking them to guess what it is. I think that's a really interesting bridge activity always. And again, responding to an image. This is a similar answer, so I like those. And I'm going to click on my slide because I like my slide. Okay, so go ahead and choose what other people wrote. Of course, if you vote for yourself, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to know that you voted for yourself. Okay, and again, I did have 14 people sign up today, and it's always nice to have more people contributing and more votes because there's only 4. It's a little less interactive than it could be. But thank you for your several ideas for a bridge in. Let's see now, I'm just gonna sort out and the winners are gonna pop up in the top left. So responding to images seems to be popular because it got 2 votes, and giving them a picture and asking them where it is. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways to gain your learners' attention. And there are a lot of different ways to create value for the lesson that they're about to go through. And I have a few more examples that I came up with. Again, I used a quote because I always like using quotes. I think quotes are a great way to get things started, especially if they're related to the session that you're about to teach. So I do that. I use quotes a lot in my online stuff. The next session I'm doing today, I start with a quote because that's always been one of my favorites. However, as a couple of you mentioned, photos are also good to use. What's happening in this photo? What do you think? Get them to start thinking about the context of the photo and how that's going to relate to what they're going to study. Any kind of graphs are also nice. Any kind of visual, students always like visuals. And if you're doing some kind of technical discussion, it's good to have a graph. There is no reason not to tell a story, and a personal story is going to work really well, especially if that story relates to the topic that you're going to be teaching that day. If you, most of you are teachers in like high school or middle school and you have a lot of students, so it might even be good to just start with a review of previous material. Go back, look back and see what's going on, because that is also going to get them ready for today's lesson, especially if you are continuing whatever it is you're continuing to teach. So that's just a few suggestions for the bridge in. Now let's talk about outcomes. And outcomes, you might have seen this expression LWBAT. You might also have seen SWBAT or various combinations of this acronym. This is an acronym for learners will be able to something, something, something. So again, in today's outcomes, I think we're about to look at that. I'm just checking, give me a second. Oh yeah, okay. We're going to look back at today's outcomes in just a second. But whenever you make outcomes for your class, whether it's for a single class or it's a syllabus for the entire class, you're usually thinking about what you want people to be learning. So learners will be able to ... and then you'll have a series of verb statements showing what you're expecting in their learning, whether it's a knowledge or a skill. They're learning something, they're learning some kind of knowledge, or they're learning some kind of skill, or they're learning some kind of competence. You'll want to have those outlined and ready to go for your students. So the main, before you write your outcomes and you're thinking of your lesson and your lesson planning, I think there's 2 really simple questions you need to ask. The first one is, for what purpose is your lesson? And the second question is, how will your learners know why they are learning something? Outside of you telling them directly. If you don't tell them directly, is there some other way to do that? So again, we're going to do a quick little brainstorm here. And if you have taught a lesson recently, you'll want to do the same thing here. Think about your own lessons that you've taught and what purpose is your lesson, and what do you do to let your learners know why they are learning something, and what does that look like? So what I'm going to do as a participant, again, is to upload the slide for this one. If I can find it, that should done pretty easily now. But I'd like to hear from you. What is it that you do? Okay. And the 2 questions are there, but I've just posted for you to see here. So give us a quick example or 2. If you can answer each of these 2 questions separately, that'll give you some time. And again, think back on lessons that you've done before. Have you had a specific purpose for the lesson? And have you thought about how you're going to let them know why they're learning something? How are you connecting it to their future lives? Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to click on hearts this time, but because I can see that everybody gets this one. It's always important to think about why you're doing your lesson, and especially how you're going to get your learners to connect the lesson to whatever it is they're going to be doing later on in life. I think one of the biggest complaints you might hear in middle school or high school, your students will be like, why am I learning math? What's the point of algebra? What's the point of geometry, trigonometry?
Sorry, Larry, can I interrupt? I just have a question. I think the question was how you're going to, how will they know why they are learning? Is it, I don't think it is enough to tell them that these things are important. I think they have to experience the importance of something.
Yes, I agree. My suggestion would be, the thing about outcomes is you don't, in the BOPPPS plan, it usually comes in second, but you don't necessarily have to have it there right at the beginning, but it might be good, it needs to be in there somewhere. It could come at the end after you ask them specifically, why did we learn these things today? So as long as you're able to get them to focus on the why, it doesn't matter where it comes in the lesson, but you do need to get them to realize why they're doing what they're doing. Because a lot of times students feel like they're learning things that have no practical use for them now or any time in the future. So if it's a really long distance thing that they're learning for, it's probably good for them to know now that this is something not immediately usable, excuse me, but something that might come up in the near or distant future. So as long as it's there somewhere in your lesson plan, I think it will be a little more motivating for your students that they know. But I agree with you, if you just tell them and then you don't come back to it, then you could be wasting your time, especially if they haven't experienced what it is you want them to learn yet. So the O is one of these exceptions where it's not bad to tell them before you start, but it could also come during the lesson and again at the end of the lesson, where you look at outcomes and you go over that with them, and you get and you determine from them that they understand why they're doing what they're doing. If that's helpful. Oh, okay. My screen is not updating very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go on. There's one more person who wrote something, but it's not appearing on my screen. I'm just going to refresh my participant screen here. Hope it shows up. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, we're going to go on now. Thank you for your contributions here. Also, one other thing about outcomes is this idea of SMART outcomes, usually written as a goal. And I don't know if you're familiar with SMART outcomes. I don't really want to talk too deeply about this one because it's a fairly big thing, but I did just want to mention it. So, and the next slide, we are going to look just a little bit at something. So SMART outcomes, usually SMART is an acronym for specific, and I'm starting on the top right and going around the clock of this circle: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So when you're writing outcomes, and I was deciding if I should give you an example, but we're just going to look at today's outcomes and see how we did with those. You usually, when you're being specific, you're asking yourself, what do you want your students to achieve? What do you want them to have by the end of a certain amount of time? And can it be tracked? How can you track it, the measurability? And can they do it? Can they do it simply or not? So that's the attainable part. Then we get into relevant. Is it worth doing? Sorry, I have someone who just joined, so I'm just going to give them the link. Hello, new teacher. If you open up your chat, these slides that I'm showing, they're interactive. And if you can open the chat and you click on that link, you can sign in with your name and then click join, and that will bring you to this slide. And just so you know that I am sharing my participant screen, but I will ask you to do some interactive things from time to time, and you'll want to use the tab that opens in your browser to do those interactions. Sometimes I've had people trying to use what I'm displaying, but you want to have it open on your desktop. So again, for everybody, it's good to have two separate tabs open so that you can do the interactions. Okay. So again, SMART outcome answers these 5 questions, and we're talking about relevant right now. Relevance, I think, is the most important because relevance has to do with the topic. So as an example, if you're teaching about apples, is your content about apples, or is it about fruit, or is it about oranges? So you want to make sure that if your topic is about apples, that your outcomes are going to be about apples. Otherwise, it's not worth doing your lesson. So relevance tends to be the most important, and time-bound, of course, is usually easiest. SMART outcomes can be for one activity, but they could also be for an entire class, or they could be for a unit of information, or they could be for a project, or they could be for an entire course inside of a curriculum, or they could be for the whole curriculum. So SMART goals, and usually at the curriculum level, that's a little too specific, but you'll have some kind of variation of SMART goals that are on there. So when you think about your classes and designing them, you do want to try to stay, or at least read your outcomes and have them to answer these 5 questions. So as an example of this, here are my outcomes again today. They're showing up on my screen so slowly. Okay, so these are the outcomes that I briefly introduced back in near the beginning of today's presentation. And again, it was defining 6 stages of a lesson plan, demonstrating understanding of concepts by giving examples that can be used in the 5 other parts, and implementing a participatory learning activity in an online setting. So in terms of SMART goals, what do you want to achieve? How can you track it? Can you do it? Is it worth doing? By when can you finish it? What I'd like you to do is we're going to use this same drawing tool again. And if it's possible, I think this one it's best to use the pencil or the highlighter at the bottom. I think I'm just going to use the pencil, and I guess I'm going to use green for what do you want to achieve. And so I'm going to just draw a line to connect what I want to achieve. So in this case, for me, achievement has to do with the verbs. So I'm going to have a lot of crazy lines on my screen, but I would say achievement has to do with defining, demonstrating, and implementing. And then for tracking, hopefully I have kind of red for tracking. And it's a little too thick. I'm going to make it thinner. And so I'm going to keep on doing that. Am I able to track something? In fact, I would say in this one, I haven't really written into these outcomes about how things are going to be measured because this is a one-time session. I'm not really thinking about tracking how you're going to implement a participatory learning activity, for example. But can it be done? For me, this is just a simple yes. All of these can be done. Oops. I probably want to use the text tool here and type yes. And just make it really small. Okay, so if you can connect the dots there somehow or make some comments, if you think these outcomes somehow can align to each of these SMART goals. Take this one. All right, this one I'm going to go by a little more quickly. I wanted to experiment with this one, but I don't like this activity. It's a little too confusing with the lines. But the point is when you have your outcomes, it's really important to see if you can apply a SMART goal framework to it to make sure that they're written. So the way I've written mine are very simply written. They're not as smart as they could be today. The time-bound part when you can finish it, that one is actually pretty easy. That one's at the top by the end of this session, right? So I'll circle that. But I would definitely recommend to have some kind of guide at your outcomes so that they're pretty thorough and they're pretty clear, because I think they help to guide the activities that you plan in your lesson plan. And again, that usually comes before you write your full outcomes as it is. So I'm just going to skip by this, but thanks for submitting, because for example, if I share this one, as you can see, there's a lot of lines, and it would take a little while to explain what all the lines mean. So I'm just gonna, that's a little too complicated. So, okay, that was a good experiment, but I'm not so happy with the way I planned out this particular activity. So I'm going to go on. So next we talk about pre-assessment. And again, before you get into your main activities, it's always good to know what their current knowledge is, or what their current skill is, or what their current competence is. Okay, all right. Elaf or Elaf, thanks for joining. Okay, so again, how do we do this? How do you know what their current knowledge is? How do you know what their current skill is? How do you know what their current competence is? How do you find out what your learners know? How do you find out what they can do? And how do you know how well they can do it? So I'm assuming as teachers, you already have a few pre-assessment strategies, and you can probably think of activities that you've done before. So if you can, take a couple minutes and try to answer these questions. Again, what strategies do you do to, I'm just trying to multitask here. So I've put up that graphic again too. So what do you do to find out what your learners know and what they can do and how well they can do it? And again, you probably, you can put in several different answers. And again, for Elaf, who just came, if you look on my screen, at the bottom of your screen here, there's a big box that says share thoughts and images here. You can click there with your mouse and you can start to type. I'm just going to type pre-assessment. Ask them, what do you know about this topic? And then once I finish typing, I'm limited to 250 characters, so I still have 224 left, but I'm going to click this big blue post button anyway. And once I click post, there, my what I wrote comes up as a little sticky. So the other participants today are doing the same. So if you can do that too. Again, think about, answer this question. How do you find out, how will you find out what your learners know, or what they can do, or how well they can do something? What strategies do you employ? And so, for example, some others have written KWL charts, putting words on a board, brainstorming knowledge on a topic, doing a mini quiz, having them do a self-assessment, or brainstorming, or asking them a few questions. And again, asking questions about the objectives of the lesson. So there's several different ones. So you might want to write, you can write 3 or 4 strategies that you use, if you use them, to let us know what you know about doing pre-assessment with your students. And it looks like almost everybody has written at least one response. You can add, if everybody can add 1 or 2 more things, that gives us a few more things to vote on. Okay, and you'll also notice with this tool I'm using, this tool is called the Collaborate Board, that you don't know who posted what, but I can tell you as a teacher, I can see who's writing everybody's answer. So I know who is actively participating and who needs a little nudge. I see one person has 2, another one has 2, another one has 3, another has 2, another has 1, and one person has 0. The person who hasn't posted, I'm pushing you to post something. Okay. And if you don't post, that's fine.
Larry, can I just ask a question? Because this is the first time I am I'm sorry, that I am aware of what I'm doing, starting to do as a student with Nearpod. Is it automatically anonymous or not?
As a teacher, I do have the power to control. Hang on, let me see. I was pretty sure, yeah, hang on, let me try this. I have show student names and, oh, okay. All right, so on my board in the lower right corner of my browser tab from the teacher side, I can see all students' names by default. And if then there in the lower right corner, it says hide student names. So if I click that, suddenly I can't see student names. But there is no setting, excuse me, there is no setting in Nearpod where I, the teacher, can allow you, the students, to see who's contributing what. So as a student, this will always be anonymous to your students. You won't know who's posting what.
Okay, great.
You as the student, but as the teacher, I can see everybody. And again, this is why I'm saying, okay, right now, one of you has made 3 contributions, another one has made 3, another one has made 1, and another one has made 2, and I have one person who hasn't responded at all. So I'm able to see immediately who's participating and who isn't, but all of you might think everybody is participating right now. And of course, in Zoom, I have the ability to send a private message to the person who's not participating. So I could either say out loud, hey, hey, name, I don't see your contribution yet. Or I could type them a private message, what's going on? Are you having technical problems? Are you sleeping? Are you too shy to contribute? You know, there could be a number of things. But that's a good way to use Zoom to find out and encourage the participation. Okay, so back to the content. Remember, it's always good before you start with your main content to employ any number of strategies like you see here to get your, to find out what your students know or what they are able to do or to what extent they're able to do something. So this is always good to start before you jump into the main activity. So again, thanks for your contributions here. We're not going to do any voting here. We're just going to move to the next thing. To note that, remember that this was the pre-assessment that I did with you, right? I'm going to introduce you to BOPPPS. What is BOPPPS? Do you know? And everybody took lots of guesses and nobody got anything right, which told me, okay, that's good. That was a good pre-assessment for me to ask you if you know what this acronym BOPPPS means. So now that we're running through things, you're getting a better idea of the different parts of a lesson that you should have. Again, BOPPPS is a suggested framework. There are lots of other frameworks. This is not the only one. This is one that I tend to work with, and especially when I'm doing online things. It just helps me to keep things in order. And again, the last thing is participatory learning, which we're about to talk about, is usually the biggest part of any kind of lesson. And again, if you look at the top left corner of our slides today, I've marked every single slide, whether it's a B, an O, a P, a P, a P, or an S. So we're right in the midst of our participatory learning right now. And we're going to continue that for a while. So keep watching until you see the post-assessment and then the summary parts come up. Okay, with that said, you have just a little over a minute and I want to check how you're doing so far. So if you can answer this question, how are you doing so far? it comes up. It doesn't come up on my screen as quickly as it needs to. Okay. So you might even do this by video. If you have all your students' videos out, you have them hold up fingers. 1 finger, I don't understand what's going on. 2, I still need help. 3, I'm getting there. 4, I mostly understand what's happening. 5, I completely understand. I own this. I can teach this. This is easy for me. That kind of stuff. So again, I'm going to choose 5 fingers because I'm the teacher today and I know everything. You have about 30 seconds to answer. And Janine, again, with most of the time things in Nearpod, I think you can either skip it or interrupt it, or if you see everybody has answered, you can then just pop in and go ahead. So I have a couple of double entries here. So everybody has answered already. So I'm just going to pop in, and one person says they don't understand. I know who that is. That's our late joiner who's trying to catch up to what we're talking about. I'll try to get you in there. We're about halfway through things right now, and my time is kind of short. Oh, that's right. I'm going until, ooh, I started at 1:10 and it's 2:10. Ooh, okay. All right. I'm looking at my time and it's pretty short already. Oh, that went fast. I might be running a little bit over, so I'll start talking a little bit faster. We're coming up to the main activity, though, that I think is hopefully the most fun and the most important and most interesting. I agree with Maya Angelou. I've learned that I still have a lot to learn, and I hope you as teachers know that too, and you pass that on to your students, that we never stop learning, and there's so much to learn, and we all want to become professional learners. Participatory learning, this is the big thing. This is what you're going to spend most of your time on, and I think that if you keep these 3 verbs in mind, involve, inform, and inspire, you're going to be more successful in the activities that you do and you plan for. And I'm going to show you a bunch of activities in just a second that I hope you're going to look through. Another thing I did, though, before we move forward is I needed a thesaurus because I wanted to see all the different verbs that are associated with each of these 3 words. So involve, you have all of these words that are synonyms. And again, I'll just give you 15 seconds or so to read them. I'll be quiet for 15 seconds. Okay, so those are synonyms for involve. And here are fewer synonyms for inform. Okay, and then we have a bunch of synonyms for inspire. Okay, so participatory learning activities. The first thing is you want to involve your students. You want them to be as active as possible, as often as possible. They need to be taking care of their learning and controlling their learning. You need to be providing that space for them so they get more involved with themselves, their learning, their partners, and with you. Inform are things like what I'm doing right now, which is mini lectures, bits of information passing either from teacher to student or from instructor to learner. I actually like using instructor and learner more, but I'll use teacher and student, either whether it's from teacher to student or student to student or teacher to students or students to students or student to teacher or student to teachers if you have more than one teacher in the class, or teachers to teachers when you're sharing information like we are today and interacting with things. It's always good to inform each other about things that are going on. And then I think most importantly, the lighting of the fire that you see under inspiring people to go out learn new things, try new things. Already I learned today that my SMART outcomes to my outcomes activity, I'm not going to do that one again. I didn't like how it came out. I thought about it a lot. I was hoping it was going to work. It didn't really work the way I wanted to. So always be experimenting and helping people think about how best to deliver some of these things, especially when we're doing a lot of stuff online these days. So inspiration is very important. And so let's get inspired right now by watching this very old movie clip from a movie that's about 30 years old. And this is a teacher teaching high school students about American politics. So I'd like you to watch this movie. You're going to be able to click play and watch this in your browser. I cannot play it for you. It's better to play it for yourself. And it's only, in 1930, it's just over 1 minute long. So go ahead and watch this and think about these three verbs. Involve, inform, and inspire, and see which of these verbs this teacher, this is the teacher, see which one of these he's able to do with his students, okay? And when you're done watching, just type done in the chat so I know I can move on. Ready? Go.
The Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone, the Great Depression, passed the, anyone, the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered, raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue
Okay, so at least 3 or 4 of you said you were done. So does anyone think this was involving anyone? Anyone? Was this involving anyone? Was it informing anyone? How about inspiring anyone? Was anyone inspired? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Did I do a good imitation of him? I hope so. So obviously we want to avoid this at all costs, especially because you saw student reactions. These high school students, my favorite was a student asleep with all of the saliva running out of their mouth to show just how horrible and uninspiring and uninvolving and uninforming this teacher was. So we want to do everything in our class that this teacher doesn't do. We want to do exactly the opposite. So I might, excuse me, I might say that I have 5 important questions that I would ask when I'm thinking about participatory learning activities. And these are, how do you ensure that your learning activities are interactive? How do you ensure that they are collaborative in some way? And I can say when I do my sessions online, I don't do a lot of collaborative activities, mainly because there is not enough good collaborative software out there. The only good one I would say is Google, my brain stopped. Google, the word processor, or Google Slides, all of the Google tools, the Google suite of tools, more than one person can be in there at a time, and they work very collaboratively. I don't really do that, and I probably should. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, there's no reason why I shouldn't. And then I have 3 questions that for me are very close to my heart, that the activities you do should have some kind, they should be meaningful. And again, this kind of answers the why of outcomes. Students need to see the purpose of doing things, or at least sometime in the lesson need to think about the purpose of doing what they're doing and connecting it to something that's real and practical, which again, and then purposeful is, again, giving them some kind of goal beyond just practicing something, but actually doing something that has an immediate real world experiential impact on what they're supposed to be doing. And of course, engaging is not exactly interactive or collaborative. For me, the feeling here is more in the mind of, it serves more toward intrinsic motivation, that you're getting students to be motivated to learn for the sake of learning because they love learning, not because you're forcing them to do something. Okay, so with that said, if you can again think of answering any of these questions with participatory learning activities, and how do you ensure that your activities are any of these 5 things? How do you ensure that they're interactive or collaborative or meaningful or purposeful or engaging? And again, I'm just going to pop up my slide here so that you can look at the visual as you think about these things. Oh, I lost my slide. There it is. Just so everybody knows, I'm probably going to go for at least another 30 minutes until maybe 3 o'clock. If you need to go, you're welcome to go at any time, of course. I'm not holding you here. And I will send you a certificate of attendance. And then, of course, I have to rethink what I'm doing to compact it down to 90 minutes, because this is definitely 2 hours we're going to take. Now I'm worried about my next presentation, which is probably going to be longer. Anyway, I'll worry about that later, right? All right, so we have lots of good posts. So I would like you to read what other people have written. And if you like what they wrote, please click that heart in the lower right corner to show that the activities that they're writing about are interactive or collaborative or meaningful or purposeful or engaging. Be generous with your hearts. And if you want, you can watch me click some hearts.
For some reason, I'm not able to put any hearts. It gives me error. Ufa.
What I would do is refresh your browser screen.
I already did.
Oh, okay. I don't know what else to tell you. That usually works. If not, then you'll just have to, you can type in the chat which ones you like. Just so we know what your votes are. That one I've never heard of before. I've never heard of anybody who wasn't able to put hearts in there. Anyway, it is what it is.
And what is Jigsaw Information-Sharing? I'm curious.
The person who typed that, do you want to say what it is? I can answer.
It's when you have like 3 parts to some topic, and you ask one small group to develop one part, one small group to develop another part, and one small group to develop the third part, and then you recompose the groups in each small group is one from each part group, and they share their information. You can do it like with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, for example. I just did it with them.
It's a good way to chunk information up and have smaller groups learn little pieces, and then everybody puts it all together by teaching each other at the end. That's very collaborative and interactive and extremely inspiring and involving and informing. It covers all the bases. There's so many good activities, and we're about to look at a few others. Okay. So I decided not to sort these out because of the time. I'm taking my time. I could take my time, this could be 4 hours, but let's move on. So I want to get to my main activity today, which is looking at a variety of participatory learning activities. I believe I have about 12 or 13 that I put up here. If you're not familiar with the gallery walk, basically, you're going to take some objects that have been created, whether it's by you or by your students, and imagine you're in a physical classroom. And I might have done this with, most of you might be familiar with this, but since we have some new people, excuse me, I need to explain that part. So you'll put these objects around the room, and then you'll have your students or your learners walk around the room. And usually they're given some kind of a handout, as you can see in the top right corner, a handout with a task to complete. And the task can be any kind of task you ask them to do. And your task today will be to look at the 12 or 13 participatory learning activities I have. And your task is going to pick one that you think you either have done before and you want to explain it a little bit, or something you'd like to try and you'd like to explain why you want to try it. So the gallery walk is a good way of presenting a lot of information, but it gives students the power of which piece of information they want to focus on. Because sometimes you have a lot of different things that people need to know. So again, the number of objects I'm about to show you, I could show you as many as, I think I have about 60 different ones right now, but I've really cut it down to about 13, which I think are really good essential participatory learning activities, okay? So on the next, let me just check my presentation. I want to make sure I know how this is going to happen. Okay. So on the next slide, you'll see the 13 slides as a, and you'll be able to scroll up to down. And then, and I'm just gonna, let me go through these quickly so you can see. Okay, so these are the gallery walk slides. And so you're able to scroll down and look at them all. And many of these will be familiar because I've done many of these today already. And then on the next page over, we have, again, a kind of, oh, I forgot what I put there. Oh yeah, okay. And then this, where it says here, time for a question, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to write about which activity you chose and which one you want to try or which one you've already done, and explain what you did when you did it, if you've already done it, or how you would like to do it if you haven't done it before. So you'll have 4 minutes to write that out. So you got to write kind of fast, okay? And so let me go back here to the gallery. And again, the way you use this gallery is if you put your mouse over the gallery, you can scroll down and you can see, for example, the first one is assess yourself, right? We already did this one. And then there's brainstorming, checkpoint we've done, debate, exit ticket, KWL, which somebody knows. Here's a nice mind map. And if you look carefully at the mind map, you'll see something interesting. 1 minute essay, 1 word. Plus minus interesting, poster session, reflection, sticky storm, and takeaway. So you'll want to look at all of these and see if you know what they are and what the activity is and how you do it. And again, if it's an activity you want to try or you have already done, that's what you're going to spend about 4 minutes writing about. So right now, wow, it's 2:32 already. I'm just going to give you 3 short minutes to look over this huge gallery and pick one thing that you want to write about. So I'm going to turn off, okay, bye Noguchi. Thank you for coming today. I know it's late for you there, so see you again. I'm going to turn off my mic and my camera just for, I'll give you 4 minutes. I'll use my phone and do a 4-minute timer, okay? So have a look and get ready to write. Actually, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you and interrupt myself. I missed one thing about the instruction. These all could be main participatory learning activities, but some of these activities also could be bridge activity, pre-assessment activities, post-assessment activities, which we haven't talked about, but you can guess what that means. And then summary is at the end. They could also be summary activities, even though I didn't talk about those. I think you can still guess that it's an activity that comes at the end of your lesson plan. Obviously, it's the S. So any of the activities that you pick, also let us know if you want to use it as a bridge, a pre, a regular participatory activity, a post activity, or a summary activity. Okay, so again, I'll give you about 3 more minutes here.
Sorry, Larry, I have a problem. I don't know where I'm supposed to write, because I can go through the activities, but then I don't know where to write.
You don't need to write yet. I just want you to think about it Or
Okay.
what you could do, if you want to start writing right now, if you look at the participant screen, right here on the right side of your screen, there's a little bar, and it has a little like pen with paper. And if you click on that, this will open what's called the notes. I keep forgetting to tell people when I use Nearpod that we have this other tool available. I tried to remind myself in the beginning, but I forgot. So what you might do, what I'm going to do is send to my email. So I click send via email. I'm going to type in my address, teachlearning.org, and I'm going to click send. So then I can start I can write right here my notes on which activity I want to do. Then when we move to the next page, before we move to the next page, so I'll just put here are my notes. So once I'm finished with that, it's better to choose it and then copy. And then when we move to the next page, you can paste it into the next page. Does that sound easy to do? I keep forgetting to talk about notes. So now you know about that feature in Nearpod too. It's really good. Okay, so again,
Thank you.
I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes to do that writing. Then we're going to paste in our answers. Okay, hopefully you're ready to go. I had 2 to 3 minutes. I know it's short. All right, so you got about 4 minutes here to pop in your answers. Which activity would you like to try, and explain your reasons? And you could also use, apparently you can use audio recording here. Let's see where it is. Oh, it's not available on my device. Okay. You can paste in your answers here, but also make sure you include whether it's a bridge, pre, post, main participatory, or even a summary activity at the end. And then I'm just going to share 1 or 2 of your, well, actually, I'll probably share everybody's ideas because we're only back down to 4 people again. All right, I just typed something short. I click submit. I'm ready to go. About 45 seconds left.
As a teacher, Larry, are you able to see what we are writing in the meantime?
I can only see when you submit on this one.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
preview the entire thing. Like I just got yours.
Yeah.
Oh, time is up. Elaf, I don't see your answer. Were you not able to click the button in time? Probably. I didn't get to let you know that. Anyway, that's fine. Okay. So let's take a look at some answers. To use the KLM and the KWL and the plus minus, interesting. And again, these two you can probably use with the draw it, because then they have 3 columns. So that's how you can create it on Nearpod. You can use any of those as the background in the draw it, and then they use the little text box and they can type in the answers in each of the 3 columns. And again, like I did with you today, starting to learn it with using the pencil tool. It takes a little time because it's a little quirky, but it still works. And I have used it several times with teachers at least, and it does work. Also using mind maps and to create any kind of fun mind map. There is, I have found some collaborative mind map software, so they could actually use it at the same time, especially if you're teaching online. And this is a good way of getting kids with their disabilities to get the basics, and you missing the basics. Okay. And of course, I'm going to, this is what I wrote very quickly, since you wrote about mind maps. I'm just waiting for my screen to refresh. Okay. I think mind maps are pretty good for pre-activities, participatory, and post-activities because they are very versatile. I wrote that one, by the way, so I'm just posting that up. I'm really partial to mind maps, and I don't know if you noticed the mind map in the gallery, but today's mind map is today's entire BOPPS lesson plan as a mind map. Did you notice, anybody? I spent about an hour making that. I had a crazy day yesterday, what can I say? Using the gallery view, which we've just done, and using Checkpoint, which is good to get feedback. And I would even say it's good to use Checkpoint. You can use it either way that I've used it, but you could also just use it verbally. So they could either use their video to hold up fingers, or you can do it as the poll, or you can say, okay, how many are 1 fingers? Me. You can hear how many there, or they clap or whatever. So you can use that for anything. And takeaway is a final activity, which I would call the summary activity, to see what students think is most useful, interesting. And 1 word is a bridge and activity and as a later stage activity. I tend to use 1 word at the end, but it's definitely good for a bridge, especially if it's a review of earlier things. So I think that's also very good. And last one, and I'm probably even going to run over 3 o'clock. Sorry. I'll try to finish as quickly as I can. Really didn't think it would take this long. But again, this is my first time doing this one too. The advantages and disadvantages, I call that the plus minus interesting, is good as a pre-assessment and as participatory because it develops critical thinking. It can lead to open discussion or debates and the complexity of reality, so it's relevant. I really recommend you don't avoid the interesting part. Plus minus interesting is an Edward de Bono invention. If you know him, he's the lateral thinking guy. He's got so many different graphic organizers. That's one of my favorites though, because the interesting part is always interesting to find out about. Okay, so that's a great list of participatory activities. So thank you for your contributions on that. let's talk about post-assessment. And again, because of time, I'm going to skip and just show you what I wanted to do because already I'm running over. I didn't want to run this far. So of course, you need to find out how your learners learned what you wanted them to learn. I'm going to skip over asking you to tell me what you do and just go straight into saying, here are several suggestions I have. Obviously, you can quiz them. You can ask them to do some kind of written or spoken reflection. There's another piece of technology, Flipgrid, that I started using recently with faculty where I work, and they're doing video reflections, so you can have your students use video. I don't have Flipgrid for today. You can always do a review of all the contents and ask them to recall everything that just happened in the lesson, or you can have them prepare a quick presentation on the content, or do self-and-peer assessment, or if you're working with portfolios or rubrics, you can ask them to contribute what they learned today to their portfolio, or give them an assignment that has a rubric. By the way, my next session is all about alternative assessment, and you're going to see a lot in there about portfolios and rubrics. That's a way for me to sell the next session. Summary, of course, is what happens at the end. I like to call this integrating and transferring learning. That is, you're moving on, your lesson is over, but you don't want to say this is the end, this is all we're going to talk about. You want to get them ready for the next good thing that's coming. And it's always good when you're making your BOPPPS framework plan to think about, well, where are people going to go next? And what ways can I, the teacher, do to guide them toward reaching those next steps? And again, I did plan a quick brainstorm activity for that, but I'll skip over this part and just say, here are some things I do. I might give some readings out. I might show them some websites. And I think I'm about to show you a website, actually. Or you can play a video for them or have them make a video. You can assign them some kind of research. You can point them to some flipped learning where you're going to give them a bunch of content that they need to look at before the next class. So you can use the next class to process what the materials that they're supposed to preview before the class. Flipped learning, I think, is good in theory, but people will always have an excuse for why they didn't do the work ahead of time and they're not prepared. And that can cause a lot of problems, especially if you've created some really interesting activities to process what they were supposed to have done before the class. And I've never had much success with the flipped approach. And I always said, so, oh, I couldn't do it, I was this busy. And it's like, well, then you're not going to be able to participate today. And then it turns out 1/3 of the class didn't do it anyway. Or you can do some kind of preview for the next lesson, of course, as a good summary type activity. So we're going to do a summary activity right now. Guess which one we're going to do? We're going to recall the 6th part of BOPPPS. And I think you know what to do already. Label the 6 parts of BOPPPS. This is our, as you can see in the top left corner, this is our post-assessment. Oh, my brain stopped working again. This is our post-assessment activity. We're done with the main participatory activities today. Now I just want to see what you remember. Elaf, this is probably new for you. I'll show you on the screen what to do if you look at my participant screen. So you want to click this circle down here, which is the text circle. That's going to pop a text box onto the screen here. And then you can choose your color and you can choose how thick or how big the letters will be. And then just click the text circle again so that goes away. And then the top left corner, you can drag this to wherever you need to drag it. And you can also reshape the box like this. And then you can type in what all of these stand for. B equals bridge. Oh, I chose a really ugly green color. Well, I shouldn't say that because my logo is green, right? Bridge in activities where you start. O for outcomes. Oops, I guess I shouldn't give away any more answers, right? And then when I'm done, I'll click the submit button. Okay, if this was a competition, I would say we have a winner, and the winner is Kirsten. You got it right. Bridge, outcomes, pre-assessment, participatory learning, post-assessment, and summary. Again, this is one framework. It's not the be-all, do-all. If you're an experienced teacher, you might have different approaches and do things in different ways. But if you're less experienced as a teacher, this is a good, I think it's a good starting framework, because it's better not to just jump in on your topic, but do something first. It's better somewhere in the lesson to let your students know why you're doing what you're doing. It's better to pre and post assess them. And then you have some room for your main activities. And then it's always better somehow to preview what's coming next. I think everybody else got it right. So I'm just going to jump ahead and say nice work. I hope you like my little comics. See that little picture of me in there? Details, very important. I get that from something called Bitmoji. It's an app, and I export it, then I go into Photoshop and turn it into a PNG file. It's 20 steps to create the materials, but I like creating materials. So it looks like you got them all right. That means nice work. Very good. You're ready to collect your certificate of attendance, because we're pretty much done. But before we finish too, I just want to let you know that I did record this session, and if you enjoyed it, I would say please tell your fellow teachers, even though they didn't come today and participate. It's always good to check it out on YouTube. And please, if you can check this, can you open your web page and see if that goes to my YouTube video page? Because once I'm done, I will take this video and I'll pop this up there. I'll pop this up there too. And if you missed any of my previous sessions, you're welcome to watch those. Although I think it's a little boring to watch as an observer only. It's better to participate, right? It's more interesting and engaging and interactive and fun and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Are you able to see my page? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
Can I ask you a question just before we finish?
Yeah.
Okay. You used Nearpod, and I mean, we actually entered Nearpod through this link you gave us. But if I'm a teacher, how can I give my students a link?
Yes, in the teacher control panel of Nearpod. Sorry, can you answer before I answer your question, can you answer mine? Were you able to see my website with the links? I mean, with the videos? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I lost you. I thought my video went out. So on Nearpod, there's a couple of ways you can share the website with students. So you have to start the live session. And then once you start the live session, there is, I'm going to the teacher screen. Wow, I'm so blind, I can't see anything. Which one is my teacher screen? This is the one, okay. So this is my teacher screen. And in the top left corner, you see this code, but if I click this, hopefully you can see this. And I have several different ways of sharing. I can share by email, social network. I usually click link, and that gives me a link here that I can copy. And then I pop over into Zoom, and I paste Zoom. And you can see now in your Zoom chat that link that I just copied. That's one way of doing it, or you can do it through Google Classrooms or something called Remind, which I don't know, or Microsoft Teams, which seems to be pretty popular. Or I just tell students, go to nearpod.com and type in this code, DOLMV, for this session. Every session is unique. Sorry. Every session is unique.
So I need to start a live session anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
The only other way you can do that is, yeah, you can't really do those ahead of time. You have to do it. You have to do it right after you've opened up your live session.
Or you can student pace it. You can send them the link and they do it.
Yeah, the student paced is for self-study, and you can decide how long they can access the student paced version. I think the default is 30 days, but you can extend it out to as long as, I think, 6 months. Okay, that's all. We're done. Thanks for your participation. Sorry to go all the way to 3 o'clock. I know we did start about 10 minutes late, so I ran about 20 minutes over, and I skipped a couple of activities. But this was my first time piloting this, and I will offer this again. So please do let your other teachers know. I'm going to trim down a couple things here and there, because I do want these to be 90 minutes long, not 2 hours long.
Larry, what time are we meeting again?
Right now, my time is 3 o'clock, meaning 1 o'clock for you. And 4:30 is the next session, meaning 2:30 for you. So you have about 90 minutes.
Okay, great. Buon appetito!
Thank you. See you all, and hopefully see you again. I will be creating more content and probably doing something in another 2 weeks. But it's so much better with more teachers. With only 4 or 5, it's kind of quiet, but okay, it still works.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye,
Ellen.
love.
Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.